Last week, I found out I had become a social media star with 2 million followers. The surprising part? A year ago, I could barely pronounce the word internet. It all started during the pandemic. My name is Agnes Wilkins, and at 75 years old, I was suddenly cut off from my 3 grandchildren. No Sunday dinners, no surprise visits, no warm hugs. Just silence and the ticking of the grandfather clock in my living room. "Mom, you need to get online," my son Derek told me over the phone. "The kids want to see you. We can video chat." Video chat? The last piece of technology I had mastered was the microwave, and even that had its temperamental days. But I missed those children something fierce. Derek sent me a laptop through a delivery service. The poor delivery boy had to stand 6 feet away while I fumbled with the signature pad. When I opened the box, it looked like a spaceship control panel had landed on my dining table. "It's already set up," Derek had assured me. "Just press the power button and call me." Well, finding the power button took me 20 minutes. Then I had to figure out which of the many icons would connect me to my family. I clicked on something called Browser, and suddenly my screen was filled with news about the pandemic, advertisements for things I'd never need, and something called Cookies that had nothing to do with my chocolate chip recipe. I called my Derek on my landline, frustration making my voice shake. "Mom, just look for the Zoom icon," he said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Zoom? Like what airplanes do?" I asked. I heard him sigh. "It's a blue icon with a video camera. Just click on it." After another 15 minutes of searching, I found it. Then came usernames, passwords, meeting IDs, and other technical gibberish that made my head spin. By the time I finally saw my grandchildren's faces on screen, I was exhausted, but their smiles made it worthwhile. "Grandma, you're on the computer!" shouted little Emma, her gap-toothed smile beaming at me. "Look at you, all high-tech now," teased Liam, my 12-year-old grandson. "Can you show us your cookies?" asked 5-year-old Zach, always thinking about his stomach. That first call was a disaster. I kept freezing, my face stuck in unflattering expressions. I accidentally muted myself and spent 5 minutes talking while they tried to tell me they couldn't hear a word. And somehow, I managed to turn on a filter that gave me cat ears and whiskers. But the children laughed so hard at that last mistake that I didn't mind. Their laughter was like music after weeks of silence. "Same time tomorrow?" asked Derek before hanging up. "Absolutely not," I said. Then I saw the children's faces fall. "How about in 2 hours instead? I need to practice." And practice I did. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at that dining table, clicking every button, testing every feature. I made notes in my recipe notebook about what each icon did. By morning, I could start a meeting, share my screen, and even change my virtual background. The next call went better. I showed the children my garden through the window. I held up the sweater I was knitting for Emma's birthday. I even managed to position the laptop so they could watch me bake cookies. Little did I know, Jennifer, Derek's wife, had recorded that cookie baking session and posted it on something called TikTok. She thought her friends would get a kick out of watching a 75-year-old grandmother narrating her famous chocolate chip cookie recipe while still learning how to use a computer. But what happened the next morning would change my quiet life forever. I woke up to my phone ringing off the hook. It was Jennifer, talking so fast I could barely understand her. "Agnes, you've gone viral. The video has 100,000 views already." "I've gone what? Do I need to quarantine?" I asked, genuinely concerned. In those early pandemic days, viral wasn't a word you wanted to hear. Jennifer laughed. No, it means lots of people are watching your baking video online. They love you." I couldn't understand why anyone would want to watch an old woman fumble with technology while making cookies, but apparently people found it charming. Comments flooded in about my soothing grandmother voice and how my methodical approach to baking was oddly satisfying. That afternoon,
I had my regular Zoom call with the grandchildren. "Grandma, you're famous!" Emma exclaimed, bouncing in her seat. "My friends at school saw you. Can you make snickerdoodles next? My friend's mom wants the recipe." "What's a TikTok?" I asked them. That question launched an hour-long technology lesson from my grandchildren. Zach, despite being only 5, seemed to understand this digital world better than I ever could. They showed me how to download the app on my phone, explained what followers were, and taught me about hashtags. By the end of the call, I had my own TikTok account at Grandma Agnes Bakes. "Now you need to post a new video," Emma instructed. "People will want to see more." I wasn't sure about all this exposure, but the idea of connecting with people during such an isolating time was appealing. Plus, baking had always been my way of spreading joy. The next day, I propped up my phone against my flour canister and recorded myself making my famous snickerdoodles. My hands shook a bit as I pressed the red button, and I nearly dropped an egg when I realized I was recording, but I kept going. The secret, I told my invisible audience, is to chill the dough for exactly 30 minutes. Not 20, not 40. Trust this old baker on that. I fumbled with uploading the video, accidentally posted it 3 times, then finally got it right. I set the phone down and went about my day, expecting nothing. By evening, the video had 200,000 views. Comments poured in from around the world. "Grandma Agnes, you remind me of my Nana who passed last year. Thank you for this gift. I've never baked anything in my life, but I'm trying these tomorrow. Can we get a cookie tutorial every day? Your voice is so calming." I sat in my armchair, reading comment after comment, tears welling in my eyes. For years after my husband, Harold, passed, I had felt increasingly invisible. Now, somehow, I was being seen and heard by more people than I had met in my entire life. Within a week, I had 500,000 followers. Jennifer helped me set up something called Instagram, and my audience there grew just as quickly. People loved my no-nonsense approach to baking, my occasional technology mishaps, and what they called my wholesome grandma energy. I began to expand beyond just cookies. I shared Harold's favorite dinner recipes, my tips for removing stains from linens, and stories from when my children were young. Each video seemed to resonate more than the last. One evening, after posting a video about my secret pie crust technique, I received a notification that made my heart nearly stop. A famous television chef had commented, "Agnes, your technique is impeccable. Would you consider being a guest on my show?" I stared at the message for so long that my screen went dark. Me? On television? At my age? It seemed preposterous. But just as I was about to dismiss the idea, my phone rang. It was Emma. "Grandma, did you see the comment? You're going to be on TV." She squealed. The excitement in her voice made me reconsider. If my newfound fame could bring this much joy to my granddaughter, perhaps it was worth stepping even further outside my comfort zone. What I didn't realize was that this television appearance would lead to something even more unexpected and, frankly, terrifying.
The television studio was nothing like I'd imagined. Lights blazed from every angle. People with headsets rushed about, and makeup artists fussed over my face as if preparing me for surgery. "We need to tone down the shine," one young woman said, dabbing my forehead with powder. "Honey, at my age, shine is the least of my worries," I replied, which made the crew laugh. The famous chef, Gordon Michaels, was surprisingly kind off camera. He showed me around the set kitchen, making sure I knew where everything was. "Just pretend the cameras aren't there," he advised. "Bake like you're at home, showing your grandkids. That authenticity is why people love you."
Easy for him to say. When the red lights came on, I froze like a deer in headlights. My hands trembled as I reached for the flour, and I completely forgot my famous pie crust recipe, the very one I'd been making for over 50 years. Deep breath, Agnes, Gordon whispered during a pause. You've got this. His encouragement helped, and gradually I settled into the familiar rhythm of baking. My hands remembered what my mind had forgotten. Soon I was chatting away about how Harold used to sneak slices of pie before dinner, making Gordon and the crew laugh with my stories. By the time we pulled the golden brown apple pie from the oven, I'd almost forgotten about the cameras. Gordon took a bite, and his expression of delight was genuine. Agnes, this is the best pie crust I've ever tasted. America, you need to follow this woman's advice. The show aired the following week. Derek set up a small viewing party via Zoom so we could all watch together despite being apart. Seeing myself on television was surreal. Who was this confident older woman talking about butter temperature and pastry techniques? Grandma, you're a natural, Liam exclaimed. After the show, my social media following exploded. 2 million followers across platforms, interview requests, and even companies wanted me to promote their baking products. It was overwhelming. One morning, I received an email from a major publishing company. We believe your story and recipes would make an exceptional cookbook, it read. We're prepared to offer you a contract. I called Derek immediately. Is this some kind of scam? I asked. Mom, I'll have to check the details, but this looks legitimate. They're one of the biggest publishers in the country. Within days, I was on video calls with editors and designers discussing chapter layouts and photo shoots. They wanted to title the book Baking with Grandma Agnes, Pandemic Pies and Quarantine Cookies. The advance they offered was more money than I had seen in my life, enough to renovate my aging kitchen, help with Liam's college fund, and still have plenty left over. As the project progressed, my daily routine transformed. Mornings were for recording new recipes, afternoons for cookbook editing sessions, and evenings for answering fan mail. Yes, people actually wrote letters to me, which I cherished more than any email. Through it all, my regular Zoom calls with the grandchildren remained sacred. They were, after all, the reason for this unexpected journey. When can we bake together for real again? Zach asked during one call, his small face serious. As soon as it's safe, sweetheart, I promised. That question lingered with me. For all the excitement of my new digital life, nothing compared to the simple joy of having flour-covered hands beside my grandchildren in the kitchen. The pandemic had given me an unexpected platform, but it had also taken away the physical connections I cherished most. Then came an email that would present me with the most difficult decision of my newfound career. A major television network wanted me to host my own baking show. Filming would begin in Los Angeles as soon as travel restrictions eased. Los Angeles, across the country from my home, my garden, and most importantly, my family. The opportunity was beyond anything I could have imagined at my age, but the cost seemed too high. As I sat in my kitchen that evening, staring at the contract on my laptop screen, I noticed my phone blinking with notifications. Another video had gone viral, but I couldn't focus on that now. This decision would change everything, and I had no idea what to do. What I didn't expect was that the answer would come from the most unlikely source, a comment on my latest video from someone's profile picture looked strangely familiar.
The profile picture belonged to Mildred Hoffman, my best friend from high school, whom I hadn't spoken to in nearly 30 years. We'd had a falling out over something so trivial, I could barely remember the details now. Something about a borrowed dress and a punch stain at our 40th reunion. Her comment read, "Agnes Wilkins, is that really you? Who would have thought you'd become an internet sensation while I can barely figure out how to send an email? Life takes the strangest turns. Maybe we should catch up sometime." Seeing Mildred's name transported me back to our youth. Two girls sharing dreams over milkshakes, double dating with the boys who would eventually become our husbands, holding each other's hands through life's early disappointments before careers, children, and trivial arguments pulled us apart. I clicked on her profile and sent a private message. Mildred Hoffman, of all the people to find me here. Yes, let's catch up. How about a video call tomorrow? The next day, facing Mildred on my screen was like looking into a mirror from a slightly different angle. Same silver hair, same laugh lines, same bright eyes that had witnessed 7 decades of history. "Agnes, you haven't changed a bit," she lied kindly. "Oh, stop it. We both know better," I laughed. After catching up on families, health concerns, and memories, I told her about my Los Angeles dilemma. "It's the opportunity of a lifetime," I explained. "But at my age, uprooting myself feels terrifying. And being further from the grandkids?" Mildred was quiet for a moment. "You know, Agnes, I had a similar choice once. Robert got that job offer in Chicago, remember? We chose not to go because of my mother's health, and I've always wondered, what if?" "Are you saying I should take the show?" I asked. "I'm saying at our age, regrets weigh heavier than risks. But your situation is different. This pandemic won't last forever. Could you do both? Keep your home and temporarily relocate?" Her question sparked an idea. I'd been thinking in extremes, stay or go, without considering alternatives. After we said goodbye, promising not to lose touch again, I called the network executives. Could we film in seasons, allowing me breaks to return home? Could some episodes feature remote cooking with my grandchildren? Could we begin with a shorter trial season? To my surprise, they were receptive. "Your authenticity is what viewers connect with," the producer said. "If maintaining your real life makes the show better, we're all for it." With this compromise taking shape, I felt ready to move forward. I called Derek to share the news. "Mom, that's incredible. The kids will be so proud. But are you sure you're ready for all this? It's a lot of change." Honestly, I'm terrified, but also excited. Who gets a whole new career at 75? "Just promise you won't forget us when you're hanging out with Hollywood stars," he teased. "As if I could," I replied. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of contracts, virtual meetings, and planning sessions. The cookbook photo shoots began remotely, with a photographer guiding me through Zoom while I positioned dishes on my dining table. Through it all, I kept posting videos, my followers now watching my journey unfold in real time. Their encouragement became a source of strength I hadn't expected. "Grandma Agnes showed me I'm not too old to try new things," wrote a woman in her 60s. "I learned to bake during lockdown because of you," commented a college student. "It kept me sane." These connections, formed across generations and geography, reminded me why this strange new path mattered. It wasn't about fame or book deals. It was about finding community during an isolated time. As the television show preparations continued, something unexpected happened with my latest video. I decided to make Harold's favorite birthday cake, a simple chocolate layer cake with buttercream frosting. While baking, I shared stories about our 77 years together, including our struggles and how we'd overcome them. The video resonated in a way none of my others had. Comments poured in from people sharing their own relationship stories, their grief, their hope. I stayed up until 2 a.m. reading them, tears streaming down my face. The next morning, my phone rang. It was the network executive. "Agnes, we've been monitoring your recent content. We'd like to modify our show concept." My heart sunk. Had I done something wrong? Was the deal falling apart? But what she said next would take my unlikely journey in yet another unexpected direction.
"We don't just want a baking show anymore," the executive explained. "We want something deeper, a show about life wisdom with baking as the backdrop. Your stories about Harold, your marriage, people are responding to that authenticity. We're thinking life lessons with Grandma Agnes." I nearly dropped the phone. "You want me to give life advice? I'm just a grandmother who bakes cookies." "Exactly," she said. "You're not a celebrity chef or a self-help guru. You're a real person with decades of lived experience. That's what makes you special." After we hung up, I sat in my garden considering this new direction. Could I really offer wisdom to strangers? My life hadn't been extraordinary. I'd loved, lost, raised children, made mistakes, just like everyone else. That evening, during our Zoom call, I asked my grandchildren what they thought. "That's perfect," Emmett exclaimed. "You always give the best advice." "Remember when I was being bullied?" Liam added. "Your stories about standing up for yourself in high school helped me figure out what to do." "You tell good stories," Zach said simply. Their confidence bolstered mine. Perhaps ordinary wisdom from a long life was exactly what people needed during these uncertain times. I agreed to the new concept, and preparations shifted accordingly. The cookbook expanded to include personal anecdotes alongside recipes. The social media team encouraged me to share more memories and life reflections between baking videos. One morning, I received a package from Derek. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal, Harold's Journal, which I knew existed but had never read. "Dad would want you to have this now," Derek's note read. "Maybe there are stories here you could share." Reading Harold's private thoughts was both painful and profoundly moving. His perspective on our life together, the joys, challenges, and mundane everyday moments, sometimes differed from my memories in fascinating ways. He noticed things I hadn't, worried about issues I'd been oblivious to, and treasured moments I'd nearly forgotten. Inspired, I made a video discussing how two people can experience the same marriage differently, reading selected passages from Harold's journal alongside my recollections. I was nervous about sharing something so personal, but it felt important. The response was overwhelming. Couples tagged each other, commenting how the video had prompted meaningful conversations. Marriage therapists shared it. Someone called it a masterclass in perspective and partnership. Through it all, I maintained my most important ritual, baking something special each Sunday and dropping it at Derek's family's doorstep, stepping back to wave at my grandchildren through the window as they collected their treats. These distant interactions became precious anchors to reality amid the virtual whirlwind. Then finally, vaccination appointments became available for my age group. I received my shots, followed the waiting period, and counted down the days until I could hug my grandchildren again. The morning of our reunion, I baked all their favorites: chocolate chip cookies for Emma, snickerdoodles for Liam, and blueberry muffins for little Zach.
I set everything on my dining table, which now doubled as a studio with ring lights and microphones. When the doorbell rang, I rushed to answer it, my heart pounding. There they stood, taller than I remembered, wearing masks but with smiling eyes. After a moment of hesitation, they rushed forward for hugs that made every difficult moment of the past year worthwhile. "You're real," Zach exclaimed, touching my face as if to confirm I wasn't just a person on a screen. We spent the day baking together, catching up, and yes, recording content for my channels. The children were naturals on camera, proudly showing off techniques they had learned from watching my videos. As we finished decorating a cake together, Derek pulled me aside. "Mom, I have something to tell you. The network called me yesterday. Is something wrong with the show?" "No, just the opposite. They've been approached by a major streaming service. They want to buy the rights to your story for a movie." I laughed, certain he was joking, but his expression remained serious. "A movie? About me? That's ridiculous. Who would watch that?" "Mom, don't you get it yet? Your journey resonates with people. From technophobe to internet sensation during a global pandemic, it's inspirational." Before I could respond, Emma called us back to the kitchen. "Grandma, you've got a video call. It's from someone famous." I hurried over, wondering what celebrity might possibly be calling me. The face on the screen made me gasp. It was someone I recognized immediately. Someone's presence in my life would open yet another extraordinary chapter.
The face on the screen belonged to Oprah Winfrey. "Mrs. Agnes Wilkins, I hope I'm not interrupting your family time," she said with that warm, familiar voice I'd heard on television for decades. I froze, unable to form words. Emma squeezed my hand excitedly, while Derek quickly adjusted the laptop so I was better framed in the camera. "Hello?" Oprah prompted, smiling patiently. Yes, hello," I stammered. "I'm Agnes. This is quite a surprise." "I've been following your story, and I'm absolutely charmed by your journey," she said. "I'd love to feature you in my magazine and possibly have you as a guest on my digital series." Behind me, I could hear Emma whispering frantically to Liam, "Grandma knows Oprah." After a brief conversation where I managed to string together mostly coherent sentences, we scheduled a formal interview for the following week. When the call ended, my kitchen erupted in cheers. "Grandma's going to be on Oprah!" Liam announced, as if declaring a historic event. "Who's Oprah?" Zach asked, chocolate frosting smeared across his cheek. That evening, after the children had gone home, I sat alone in my suddenly quiet house. My dining table was cluttered with baking equipment and high-tech gadgets that would have been alien to me a year ago. My phone continued to ping with notifications. The leather-bound journal of Harold sat open beside me. "What would you make of all this, Harold?" I whispered to the empty chair where he used to sit. I could almost hear his response. "Well now, Aggie, you always did have more in you than you realized." The Oprah interview went surprisingly well. Rather than feeling intimidated, I found myself comfortable sharing my story with her. The grief of losing Harold, the isolation of the pandemic, the unexpected connection technology had given me to not only my grandchildren, but to millions of strangers. "What do you think resonates most with your audience?" Oprah asked. I considered this carefully. I think people are hungry for authenticity. I'm not pretending to be anything other than what I am, a grandmother who sometimes burns cookies and can't figure out why her screen is frozen. But I'm still learning, still growing, still finding joy. Maybe that gives others permission to do the same regardless of their age. Oprah nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly it.
You've given people hope during a time when many feel stuck. The feature in her magazine generated another wave of attention. Suddenly, I was fielding requests from morning shows, podcasts, and even international media. My cookbook pre-orders doubled overnight. In all this whirlwind, I received an unexpected email from a retirement community in Florida. Our residents have been following your videos religiously, the activities director wrote. Many have started baking again after years of not bothering just for themselves. Others have begun learning technology to connect with their families. You've sparked something powerful here. Would you consider doing a virtual event with our community? This invitation touched me more deeply than the high-profile opportunities. I immediately agreed and soon found myself on a group call with 40 seniors, many older than myself, eager to share their own pandemic experiences and ask questions about everything from pie crust to TikTok algorithms. One woman, Dorothy, who was 92, told me she'd started her own Instagram account inspired by my example. I post pictures of my garden, she explained proudly. My great-grandchildren finally know what I'm up to. That conversation sparked an idea. With help from Derek, I created a private online community specifically for seniors wanting to learn technology and share their passions. We called it Silver Screens, a play on both silver hair and computer screens. The community grew rapidly, with members teaching each other everything from smartphone basics to digital photography. Many formed friendships across continents, connecting over shared experiences from different cultural perspectives. As vaccinations became more widespread and restrictions began lifting, the television production finally set a start date. I would need to be in Los Angeles for 6 weeks of filming. The night before my departure, Derek's family came for a farewell dinner. I'd spent the day cooking all their favorites, my way of leaving love behind in the refrigerator while I was gone. "We'll have our Zoom calls, right, Emma?" asked, helping me pack my baking tools. "Absolutely," I promised. "And I'll send you behind-the-scenes photos every day." As we ate, Liam surprised me by raising his glass of milk in a toast. "To Grandma Agnes," he said with unexpected solemnity, "who taught us that it's never too late to try something new." Later, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my porch swing looking at the garden Harold and I had tended together for decades. I was nervous about leaving, about filming a television show, about being away from everything familiar. But then my phone chimed with a notification. It was a message from Dorothy, the 92-year-old from the retirement community. "Agnes, just wanted to wish you luck in Hollywood. Remember, we're all rooting for you. You've shown us that our stories still matter. Bring that wisdom to the world." Her words steadied me. This journey had never really been about me. It was about connection, about bridging generations, about finding purpose when the world had turned upside down. As I packed the last of my things, I found myself humming a tune Harold used to whistle while gardening. For the first time in ages, the memory brought more joy than pain. What I couldn't know then was that Los Angeles would test me in ways I never anticipated, and that my biggest challenge was yet to come.
Los Angeles was a shock to my system. The constant sunshine, the palm trees, the traffic, all so different from my quiet neighborhood back east. The network had arranged a small apartment for me near the studio, modern and sleek with none of the comfortable clutter of my own home. The production team was kind, but operated at a frantic pace that left me breathless. There were wardrobe fittings. Apparently my own clothes weren't television ready. Lighting tests and endless meetings about the concept and branding. "We want to keep your authenticity while enhancing your appeal to younger demographics," one young executive explained, examining me as if I were a science experiment. "Honey, at my age, there's no enhancing to be done. What you see is what you get." The comment earned me laughs, but I could tell they were still planning to polish me somehow.
On the third day, a styling team arrived at my apartment with racks of clothing. "We're thinking a more sophisticated look," the stylist explained, holding up an expensive-looking blazer in a shade of purple I'd never wear. "I bake in an apron, not evening wear," I protested. The wardrobe debate continued until I put my foot down. "If you want authentic Grandma Agnes, then you get my cardigans and comfortable shoes. I'm not playing dress up at 75. My stance created a minor crisis among the production team. There were hushed conversations and worried glances. Finally, the head producer pulled me aside. "Agnes, I'm going to be honest. Some of our sponsors were hoping for a certain elevated aesthetic, but I personally think you're right. Your authenticity is what viewers connect with." "Then we understand each other," I said firmly. Word of my small rebellion apparently reached the network executives because the next day the show's concept shifted slightly. Rather than trying to make me fit a glossy television mold, they leaned into the contrast between my traditional grandmother approach and the modern world of social media. The first week of filming was exhausting, but rewarding. We shot episodes in a studio kitchen that had been designed to look somewhat like my own, but with better lighting. Between takes, I found myself bonding with the crew, sharing cookies with camera operators and swapping stories with production assistants. Many evenings, I was too tired to do more than video call Derek's family briefly before collapsing in the bed. The schedule was more demanding than I had anticipated. "You look tired, Mom," Derek observed during one call. "Are they working you too hard?" "I'm fine," I insisted, not wanting him to worry, just adjusting to the pace. But truthfully, I was struggling. My energy wasn't what it had been even a decade ago, and the long days under hot studio lights were taking a toll. I began to wonder if I'd made a mistake, if I was too old for this new chapter after all. Then came the episode that changed everything. We were filming a segment about comfort food and grief, specifically how I'd coped with losing Harold by cooking his favorite meals. The script called for me to share memories while preparing his beloved pot roast. As the cameras rolled, I found myself telling the story of our last anniversary together, when Harold was already sick, but insisted on helping me in the kitchen despite his weakness. He could barely stand, I recalled, chopping onions that conveniently disguised my tears. But he said, "Aggie, 47 years together means I don't sit while you work." So he sat at the table instead, peeling potatoes slower than Christmas, but determined to contribute. I hadn't planned to share that particular memory. It has simply risen to the surface, raw and real. When I looked up, the entire crew was silent. The director, a tough woman who rarely showed emotion, was wiping her eyes. "That's a wrap," she said softly. "That was perfect, Agnes." Later, she told me they'd received permission to let the episodes run longer than initially planned. "Some stories shouldn't be rushed," she explained. That night, in my temporary apartment, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, this was exhausting. Yes, I missed my home, but these stories mattered, not because they were extraordinary, but because they were ordinary in a way that connected to people's own experiences. I called Emma, who answered immediately. "Grandma, how was filming today?" "It was good, sweetheart." I told a story about Grandpa Harold. "The one about the potatoes?" she asked. "Mom cries every time you tell that one." I smiled, touched that my family remembered these stories, passed them down among themselves. "Emma," I said suddenly, "would you and your brothers like to be on the show? I have an idea I want to run by the producers." The next day, I proposed a special episode, Baking Across Generations, with me teaching my grandchildren family recipes via video call on the set. To my surprise, the network loved the concept and immediately began making arrangements. What I didn't tell them was that I'd been having increasing dizzy spells, moments where the bright lights swam before my eyes and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. I'd brushed it off as fatigue, but a small voice inside worried it might be something more. I decided it could wait until after the special episode with my grandchildren. I didn't want anything to interfere with that opportunity. The morning we were scheduled to film, I woke feeling particularly lightheaded. I drank extra water, had a proper breakfast, and took a taxi to the studio despite it being within walking distance. As the cameras prepared to roll and my grandchildren's faces appeared on the large screen on the set, I forced a bright smile and pushed aside my discomfort. This was too important to postpone. Today, I told the camera, I'm sharing not just recipes, but heritage. The greatest joy of a grandmother is passing down knowledge to the next generations. We began baking my mother's apple tart recipe, with the children following along from Derek's kitchen. Halfway through filming with my grandchildren, the room began to spin. I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself, but the dizziness intensified. The last thing I remember was Emma's voice calling, "Grandma!" before everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors surrounding me. Derek was sitting beside me, his face drawn with worry. "Mom," he said, leaning forward when he saw my eyes open. "Thank God." "What happened?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "You collapsed during filming. They rushed you to the hospital." He took my hand. "You had a minor stroke." The words hung in the air between us. A stroke. At 75, I knew it was always a possibility, but somehow I'd never truly believed it would happen to me. "The grandchildren?" I began. "They're fine," Derek assured me. "Scared, but Jennifer's keeping them busy. They're making you get well cards." Over the next few days, doctors ran tests, adjusted medications, and explained what had happened. The stroke had been relatively minor. I had been lucky. There was no permanent paralysis, though I had some weakness on my left side that would require physical therapy. "The exhaustion and stress likely contributed," my neurologist explained. "Your body was telling you to slow down." The network executive sent flowers and assurances that my health came first, but I could sense their concern about the show's future. My phone filled with well wishes from followers, the Silver Screens community, and even Oprah. On the third day, Derek brought his laptop to my hospital room for a video call with the grandchildren. "Grandma, are you okay?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with concern. "I'm getting better every day, sweetheart," I assured her. "When are you coming home?" Zach asked. Home. The word resonated deeply. Not my temporary Los Angeles apartment, but my real home, with my garden and Harold's memories and the comfort of familiar surroundings. "Soon," I promised. "Very soon." After the call, Derek and I had a serious conversation about my future. The doctors had advised reducing stress and maintaining a more manageable schedule. "Mom, I think it's time to step back from some of this. The show, the constant appearances, it's too much." Part of me wanted to argue, to insist I could handle it all, but the hospital bed and the weakness in my left hand told a different story. "What about all the commitments I've made?" I asked. "The book, the show, the online community?" "You can still do those things, just differently," Derek suggested. "Maybe the show becomes a special series rather than a regular program. Maybe you limit your online presence to scheduled times. There are ways to continue what matters without endangering your health." That night, alone in my hospital room, I thought about Harold and what he would advise. I could almost hear his practical voice. "Aggie,
What good is success if you're not around to enjoy it? When my producer visited the next day, I was ready with a proposal. The show would be filmed in shorter segments, primarily at my own home once I was well enough to travel. We would focus on quality over quantity, perhaps 6 special episodes a year rather than a regular series. To my surprise, she was receptive. She said, "Audiences connect with your authenticity. I think they'll understand and appreciate this approach even more." As for the cookbook, we agreed to extend the deadline and adjust the promotional tour to accommodate my recovery. 2 weeks later, I was cleared to fly home with Derek, accompanying me. The weakness in my left side was improving with therapy, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic about my recovery. The flight attendant recognized me as we boarded. "My mother loves your videos," she whispered. "She started baking again because of you." I smiled, touched by the connection. "Tell her to try the cinnamon rolls. They're forgiving if your hands aren't steady." When we finally pulled into my driveway, I felt tears welling up at the sight of my little house. Jennifer and the children had hung a "Welcome Home Grandma Agnes" banner across the porch, and Emma had planted fresh flowers in the garden beds. "We've been taking care of everything," Liam assured me, hovering protectively as Derek helped me up the front steps.
Inside, everything was familiar, yet somehow new. My perspective had shifted during my time away and subsequent hospitalization. The dining table, with its ring lights and microphones, no longer seemed like the center of my world. That evening, after the excited welcome had quieted and the children had gone home with Jennifer, Derek helped me settle into my favorite armchair. "Are you disappointed?" he asked, "about having to scale back everything?" I considered the question carefully. I think I'm relieved. This past year has been extraordinary, more than I ever could have imagined at my age, but I was starting to lose sight of why it mattered. "What do you mean?" It was never about becoming famous or having millions of followers. It was about connection during an isolated time, about sharing something meaningful with others. I gestured around my living room. I can still do that from here, on my own terms. Derek nodded. "You always did know how to adapt." The next morning, I posted a video update from my kitchen table. No professional lighting, no script, just me explaining what had happened and my plans going forward. I was nervous about showing this more vulnerable side, but the response was overwhelming. "Thank you for your honesty," one follower wrote. "My mother had a stroke last year, and seeing you continue with adjustments gives us both hope." "Take care of yourself," wrote another. "Your wisdom is worth waiting for." In the weeks that followed, I established a new rhythm. 3 mornings a week, I filmed simple baking videos in my kitchen. The production value wasn't as polished, but the content felt more genuine. Once a week, I hosted a virtual gathering for the Silver Screens community, where seniors shared their own stories and skills. The cookbook was released with less fanfare than originally planned, but received wonderful reviews. "Grandma Agnes offers more than recipes," one critic wrote. "She serves up life wisdom garnished with humor and grace." 3 months after my stroke, we filmed the first of the special episodes in my home. The production team was smaller, the pace more relaxed, but the content more meaningful. My grandchildren participated both on-screen and behind the scenes, with Liam developing a keen interest in video editing.
On a warm Sunday afternoon, as I sat on my porch swing watching Emma and Zach play in the garden Harold and I had planted decades ago, my phone rang. It was Dorothy, my 92-year-old friend from the retirement community. "Agnes, have you seen the news?" she asked excitedly. I hadn't. Between physical therapy and my reduced work schedule, I'd been less connected to media. Your story, our story, the Silver Screens community, we've been nominated for a special impact award from the Digital Media Association for changing perceptions of aging and technology. As Dorothy continued explaining, I watched my grandchildren chasing butterflies in the garden Harold and I had planted decades ago. The nomination was an honor, of course, but the real award was right in front of me. This chance to bridge generations, to share wisdom while continuing to learn and grow. Later that evening, as I kneaded dough for dinner rolls, excellent therapy for my weakened hand, I realized something profound. The stroke, frightening as it had been, had given me a second chance to define what truly mattered in this unexpected chapter of my life. The balance I'd found now felt right, contributing meaningfully without sacrificing my health or time with family. The journey had come full circle, from isolation during the pandemic to overexposure in the spotlight, and finally to this middle ground of purposeful connection. As I shaped the last roll, my phone pinged with a message from a viewer. "My daughter and I made your cookies together today. First time we've baked together in years. Thank you for bringing us back to the kitchen." I smiled, flour dusting my hands. This was why it all mattered. And the most surprising turn in my journey was yet to come.
6 months after my return home, life had settled into a comfortable new pattern. My strength had returned, though I still tired more easily than before. The special episodes we'd filmed in my home had been well received, with viewers appreciating the more intimate approach. One morning, I was filming a segment on Harold's bread pudding recipe when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Is this Agnes Wilkins?" asked a woman's voice I didn't recognize. "Yes, it is." "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen from Greenwood University. I'm the chair of the Digital Communications Department." I set down my wooden spoon. Curious. "How can I help you, Dr. Chen?" "Actually, I'm hoping to offer you something. We've been following your journey from technology novice to digital influencer with great interest. Your approach to connecting generations online has created a case study unlike anything we've seen before." I laughed softly. I'm hardly an expert. I still accidentally mute myself at least once a week. "That's exactly what makes your perspective valuable," she replied. "We'd like to invite you to be a guest lecturer for our senior seminar series this fall, to share your experiences bridging the digital divide, especially for older adults." I nearly dropped the phone. "A lecturer? At a university? I don't have any academic credentials." "You have something more valuable, lived experience and the ability to communicate it effectively. Our students are studying how digital media can connect rather than divide. Your story embodies that perfectly." After discussing the details, I agreed to give it some thought. When I told Derek about the offer that evening, his reaction surprised me. "You should do it, Mom. You'd be fantastic." "Me? Teaching college students? I'd be terrified." "Like you were terrified of TikTok and television and publishing?" He smiled. "Fear hasn't stopped you yet." He had a point. Every step of this journey had pushed me outside my comfort zone, and each time I'd discovered new capabilities I hadn't known I possessed. I accepted the invitation. The university arranged for me to present 3 guest lectures during the fall semester with topics ranging from digital communication across generations to
Authentic Storytelling in the Age of Algorithms. Preparing for these lectures became my new project. I researched digital communication theories, gathered examples from my own experience, and practiced presenting to Derek and the grandchildren, who provided brutally honest feedback. "Grandma, you need more pictures in your slides, and maybe some videos?" "You keep saying when you're thinking," Liam pointed out. Their critiques were invaluable. By the time my first lecture date arrived, I felt as prepared as I could be, though still tremendously nervous. The university auditorium was larger than I had expected, filled with students who looked impossibly young. As Dr. Chen introduced me, I gripped the podium, willing my hands not to shake. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "A year and a half ago, I didn't know how to join a Zoom call. Today, I'm speaking to you about digital communication strategies. If that doesn't prove anyone can learn new skills at any age, I don't know what does." The laughter that rippled through the room helped ease my tension. As I continued, sharing stories of my technology mishaps, unexpected viral moments, and the meaningful connections that had emerged, I watched the students' faces. They were engaged, taking notes, nodding in recognition. During the question period afterward, a young woman raised her hand. "My grandmother refuses to learn anything about technology. She says she's too old. How did you overcome that mindset?" I thought carefully before answering. I had a powerful motivation, wanting to see my grandchildren during lockdown. Sometimes it takes finding the right personal motivation. For your grandmother, it might be something different, maybe accessing music she loves or connecting with old friends. Start with what matters to her, not with the technology itself. The student nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Thank you." After the lecture, several students approached to continue the conversation. One young man told me his team was developing an app specifically for seniors learning technology and asked if I would consult on the user experience. "We want to design it for real people, not just our idea of what older adults need," he explained. As I left campus that day, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I'd connected with a generation that could have seemed impossibly distant from my own experience. Instead, we'd found common ground. The second and third lectures went even better as my confidence grew. By the final session, students from other departments were attending, and Dr. Chen mentioned that the videos of my talks had been shared widely among faculty. After the last lecture, she invited me to her office. "Agnes, I won't beat around the bush. We'd like to develop this into something more permanent. Would you consider teaching a full course next semester? Digital communication across generations as a special topic seminar?" I stared at her, speechless for a moment. "A full course? But I don't have a degree or teaching experience." "You'd be classified as an adjunct instructor with specialized expertise. We do this occasionally with professionals who bring unique real-world knowledge, and you clearly have a talent for teaching." On the drive home, my mind raced with possibilities. Teaching at a university had never been among my life ambitions. It hadn't even seemed remotely possible. Yet here was the opportunity, emerging from the most unexpected sequence of events. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed Derek's car already parked out front. He wasn't scheduled to visit today. I found him in the kitchen with the grandchildren, all wearing serious expressions. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong," Derek assured me, "but we need to talk about something important." They guided me to the living room where a folder lay on the coffee table. Inside was a brochure for a retirement community, not a nursing home, but an active living community with independent apartments. "Before you say anything," Derek began, "this isn't about pushing you out of your home. It's about an opportunity." Emma jumped in, unable to contain herself. "Grandma, it's right near the university, and they have a teaching kitchen where residents can host classes." Slowly, they explained their thinking. The community was located just minutes from Greenwood University. It offered independent living with optional services as needed. Most importantly, it had state-of-the-art technology in every apartment and community spaces designed for recording and broadcasting. "The director is apparently a fan of yours. When she heard you might be teaching at Greenwood, she reached out to discuss creating a digital communication center within the community. You could potentially base your operations there instead of converting your dining room into a studio." I looked at the brochure, then at my family's hopeful faces. "You've given this a lot of thought." "We know how much your home means to you," Derek said gently. "This isn't something you need to decide now or ever, but it seemed worth considering, especially with this new teaching opportunity." That night, after everyone had gone, I sat in Harold's old chair, thinking about change and continuity. Our home held precious memories, but it was also becoming increasingly difficult to maintain alone. The stairs were challenging on days when my left side felt weaker. The garden required more help than I could manage. I thought about what Harold would say. He had always been practical, forward-thinking. "Life keeps moving, Aggie," he used to tell me. "Either you move with it, or you get left watching it go by." The next morning, I called the retirement community and arranged a tour. What I discovered there would open yet another unexpected door in my continuing journey.
The Greenwood Meadows retirement community wasn't what I had imagined. Instead of the clinical, institutional setting I'd feared, I found a vibrant campus with independent apartments, community gardens, and common spaces filled with residents engaged in various activities. Patricia Morgan, the director, greeted me with obvious excitement. "Mrs. Wilkins, we're honored you're considering our community. I followed your journey since those first baking videos." As she guided me through the tour, I was struck by the thoughtful design. The apartments were spacious and customizable. The grounds included walking paths and gardening plots. But what truly caught my attention was the community center. "This is our newest addition," Patricia explained, leading me into a large, bright room. "We call it the Connection Hub." The space contains state-of-the-art broadcasting equipment, computer stations, and a demonstration kitchen designed for filming. At one station, an elderly man was recording what appeared to be a woodworking tutorial. "Many of our residents have started sharing their knowledge online," Patricia explained. "Inspired by you, actually. We've partnered with Greenwood University's Digital Communications Department to create this intergenerational learning space." As we continued the tour, I met several residents who recognized me immediately. Martha, a former chemistry professor, showed me her online science experiments for grandchildren. Walter, a retired pilot, demonstrated the flight simulator he used to teach basic aviation concepts to online followers. We're not just consumers of technology here. We're creators, contributors. That's the philosophy we've built this community around. By the end of the tour, I felt a surprising sense of possibility. This wasn't about surrendering independence or abandoning memories. It was about embracing a new chapter with appropriate support. "What do you think?" Patricia asked as we concluded. "I think I need some time to consider," I replied honestly. "It's a big decision." Over the next few weeks, I discussed the possibility with Derek and the grandchildren, visited the community again, and spent long evenings thinking about what I truly wanted for this stage of life. The university had confirmed their offer for me to teach the seminar course, which would begin in 3 months. The television specials continued to be well received, and my online community remained engaged, though I'd scaled back to a more sustainable schedule.
One evening, as I was reviewing the contract for the teaching position, my doorbell rang. To my surprise, Dorothy from the retirement community in Florida stood on my porch. "Dorothy, what are you doing here?" I exclaimed, hugging her frail form. "I'm visiting my niece in the area," she explained as I ushered her inside. "But I had to see you in person to thank you." Over tea, she told me how our digital friendship had transformed her final years. "Before the pandemic, I was just waiting to die," she said bluntly. "Now I have purpose again, connection. I've reconnected with friends I hadn't spoken to in decades. I'm teaching my great-grandchildren family recipes through video calls." Her visit crystallized something I'd been feeling, but couldn't quite articulate. The journey I'd been on wasn't just about adapting to technology or finding unexpected fame. It was about discovering a new purpose at a stage of life when society often assumes we have nothing left to contribute. The next day, I made my decision. I called Patricia and arranged to sign a lease at Greenwood Meadows with a move-in date the following month. Then I called Dr. Chin to confirm I would teach the seminar course. Telling Derek and the children was emotional, but affirming. They helped me plan which furniture to bring, which beloved items to keep, what to pass down now rather than later. "I'll have a guest room," I assured them. "You can all visit any time." Emma was particularly concerned about Harold's garden. "What will happen to Grandpa's roses?" I'd thought about this carefully. We're going to transplant some of them to my new garden plot at Greenwood Meadows, and I'd like you to care for the ones that stay here. Her face brightened at this responsibility. I'll learn everything about roses. Moving day arrived with both sadness and anticipation. As the last boxes were loaded, I stood in my empty living room, memories flooding back. Harold bringing me coffee in the mornings, Derek taking his first steps across this very floor, the grandchildren opening Christmas presents by the fireplace. "You can still change your mind, Mom," Derek said gently, finding me lost in thought. I shook my head. It's time. These walls have held our past. Now I need to build something new. My apartment at Greenwood Meadows quickly became home, filled with carefully chosen treasures from my previous life, alongside new, more practical furnishings. Harold's roses thrived in my garden plot, and I added herbs for baking. The seminar course began, and to my delight, it filled to capacity with students from various disciplines. Together, we explored how digital communication could bridge generational divides, with students and seniors from the community collaborating on projects. One afternoon after class, Dr. Chin approached me with another proposal. "Agnes, we've been discussing the possibility of a certificate program in intergenerational digital communication. Would you consider helping us develop it?" This led to another unexpected opportunity, co-authoring an academic paper with 2 faculty members on the digital transformation of older adults during the pandemic, with my experience as a case study. At Greenwood Meadows, I found myself at the center of a growing movement. Residents who had previously avoided technology began asking for help creating their own digital legacies, recording family stories, sharing specialized knowledge, connecting with younger generations. With support from the university, we established a formal mentoring program where residents partnered with students. Seniors shared life experience and practical wisdom. Students provided technical guidance and fresh perspectives. My television specials evolved to showcase these intergenerational partnerships, highlighting the value of connection across age barriers. The cookbook expanded into a series, with volumes focusing on family recipes as vehicles for cultural and personal history. 1 year after my move, as I celebrated my 77th birthday surrounded by family, friends, and new colleagues, Emma presented me with a special gift, a scrapbook documenting my unexpected journey from technophobe to digital pioneer. "Look at the last page, Grandma," she urged. There I found a letter from the university president informing me that I would receive an honorary doctorate at the upcoming commencement ceremony, recognizing my contributions to intergenerational communication. "Dr. Agnes," Liam teased, "we'll have to start calling you that now." I laughed but felt tears welling up too. If only Harold could see this. "He'd be proud, but not surprised," Derek said, squeezing my hand. "He always said you were the strongest person he knew." That night, after everyone had gone, I sat on my new patio looking at the stars above the garden where Harold's roses now bloomed alongside my herbs. I thought about the extraordinary chain of events that had brought me here. A pandemic that isolated us, technology that reconnected us, a stroke that forced me to recalibrate, and countless unexpected opportunities that emerged from simply being willing to try something new. At 77, my life was fuller, more purposeful than I could have imagined just 2 years earlier. Not because I had become famous or successful by conventional standards, but because I had remained open to possibility, to connection, to growth. As a cool evening breeze rustled the rose leaves, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life continues to surprise us, if only we remain curious enough to embrace its unexpected turns. And sometimes, the most extraordinary journeys begin with something as simple as learning to press the right button on a laptop just to see the faces of those we love.